Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the three hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Kulturecast. I am the man with no name and editor-in-chief of Culture Shock, Chris Stachiw.
And I'm John Lein, and you know what you are? Just a dirty son of a...
You, sir, are a sack of shit.
Wow.
So, as you can tell from John's exuberant reference, in our Western month, Salute to Westerns this month, we're going to be talking about today the Man with No Name Trilogy, or the Dollars Trilogy, or whatever you call it. The three films that featured Clint Eastwood in what I would say arguably his most iconic role outside of Dirty Harry, A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The films that ushered in the genre of spaghetti westerns, and also solidified the genius of Sergio Leone and made Clint Eastwood a huge star in Hollywood. Let's get right to the first film. A Fistful of Dollars was filmed in 1964, wasn't released in the States until 1967. Filmed on a budget of $200,000. Eastwood was paid $15,000 for it. It features Clint Eastwood as the man with no name, even though he's given a name in every film. In the first film, he's known as Joe. And it is a retelling of Yojimbo, the Akira Kurosawa film, but me personally, I felt it was almost like a version of Romeo and Juliet without the romantic story. Clint Eastwood is the man with no name. He's in the town of San Miguel, and he is working for the two warring families in the city and pitting them against one another for his own gain, and so that the city can be out of the grips of these two warring families. So, John, what did you think of the movie?
Well, like
right. What did you think of the movie? It was good. Okay, moving on.
I didn't watch this one for a long time. I watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly with my dad when I was, I don't know, maybe 12, 13, something like that. And that's sort of what got me started on Westerns, and that was followed by a lot of public access television where they replayed a lot of the old Western TV shows. And I didn't start checking back on other sort of Clint Eastwood Westerns and things like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly till I got a little older. And I also watched Fistful of Dollars before I watched Yojimbo. So I watched The Fistful of Dollars finally, and I was like, man, this is really good, but it's not quite as awesome as The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And then I watched Yojimbo, and I was like, man, Fistful of Dollars is a straight rip-off of this movie. But I really like A Fistful of Dollars still as a whole, because I love Ramon Rojo, played by Gian Maria Volante. I don't know how you say his last name.
Oh, boy. This is going to be rough.
Yeah, it is. They're all fucking Italian.
Volante? Yeah.
I really like that bad guy. I like Clint Eastwood's whole, the whole...
outsmarting everybody.
Right. And, particularly the sort of classic that everybody tries to reference and use is my mule doesn't quite understand that you fellas are just joking. Maybe if you went and apologized to him, I'd be able to convince him to let it go. I don't know, that whole scene is in so many things. I mean, I don't know, this movie's great.
Everything about these movies is in everything.
Huh?
I mean, everything in these movies is in everything.
Oh, yeah.
When we talked about Once Upon a Time in the West over the weekend, I made the statement that it's one of the best Westerns I've ever seen. And after watching these three films, that still stands. However, these three films are way, way, way more approachable for the modern audiences.
Oh, yeah. Maybe not so much The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but A Fistful of Dollars and A Few Dollars More are far more quickly paced to sort of upkeep or keep up with, attention spans.
Right.
And it's, that's not saying anything particularly bad. It just is a better, quicker paced movie than Once Upon a Time in the West and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Right.
I mean, it goes from Clint Eastwood riding into town to him shooting 4 dudes in maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, more or less.
It
escalates extremely quickly.
Mm-hmm. They give a little bit of exposition through the bartender, and after that exposition, he walks out and gets 4 dudes to draw down on him and shoots them all.
Yeah. Well, and that's my favorite part of the movie is this kind of mind game that Eastwood is playing with the two warring factions, the Rojos and
the Baxters.
Baxters, yeah. So the warring in between them and him caught in the middle, I think that's really awesome about this movie. And obviously the next 2 films, one is a chase movie and the other one is a chase movie. This one is kind of the only one that's really grounded in one position throughout the whole film. And I really like that.
Right, but I think that also might have to do a lot with the budget and the fact that it was Sergio Leone's first sort of breakout film.
Yeah.
And, I think probably after the success of A Fistful of Dollars, he got a little more leeway to do more epic sweeping stuff.
Yeah.
Because you can totally see that build over the course of the Man with No Name trilogy.
I mean, at the end, when we get to talking about Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Jesus.
Right.
Yeah. It feels like, well, again, we get there. I really like this first movie, A Fistful of Dollars. It is a good introduction to Eastwood's character as the Man with No Name. And I think that everybody else is all right. Nobody's really phoning it in. But the other, like you said, the other character that really stands out to me in the film is Gian Maria Volante as Ramon Rojo, otherwise known as the guy who just laughs and shoots people all the time. And has crazy aim.
Right. His favorite target practice is a suit of iron, and he shoots little heart outlines in it with bullets.
Yeah.
Over Clint Eastwood's shoulder because
he's nuts.
Right.
He's
absolutely insane.
Yeah, he's an absolutely insane person.
They spend maybe 15, 20 minutes of the movie talking about how badass he is, and then you finally get to see him, and the very first thing that happens when he gets on screen is he gets exposed when a fucking wagon opens up, and he's just Gatling gunning people for 5 minutes.
Jesus, yeah. Yeah.
And that's the introduction to his character, is him mowing down...
laughing like a madman.
As he just mows down a whole platoon of Mexican soldiers and then frames the United States military.
I really like that scene.
Yeah, me too. It's awesome.
Yeah. Everything about this movie is pretty awesome. At one point, Clint Eastwood, to outsmart Ramon Rojo, who's this great shot, he gets a piece of steel, I guess, maybe iron, from a mine cart, and he hangs it under his poncho. Again, the poncho being really another iconic thing by happenstance, but totally iconic for his character, always wearing this kind of green poncho.
And it's always the same poncho in all the movies.
Yeah.
He didn't even wash it.
Really?
Yeah, so they put squibs in it for this movie, right? He got shot something like 7 times in this movie. And so the squibs actually blow holes in the poncho. And he takes the poncho home with him because he brought it with him because the costume that they initially were going to put Eastwood in was terrible. And so he took it home and he had it repaired but never washed. And then he brought it back when they called him back for a few dollars more, and you can still see the little holes where the thread is different because it was repaired when he's in a few dollars more.
Right. I didn't notice that, but maybe when I go back and watch it again, which won't be for a long time, because of the holiday weekend, watched all 3 films in one day, which was about 7 hours of movies.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts.
Yeah, and by the end of it, I was done. Totally done. This movie is good. The only issue that I have with this movie is kind of the issue I have with all 3, and that's the ADR.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
It's bad.
Well,
and it's in some spots it's not that bad. I'll give you that. But the ADR, because of the way they filmed the movie, which is they filmed it silent to begin with and ADR'd everything in afterwards.
Because they had to.
Right, because they couldn't capture the sound quality that they wanted. Mm-hmm. It just... sometimes it's really noticeable and it pulls me out of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
And it's not super helpful that Clint Eastwood didn't record his dialogue until, I don't know, something like 3 months before it released in America. So... Right. Between filming A Fistful of Dollars and recording his dialogue for it, there was a 3-year time lapse.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine that helped him sort of fit his words to the mouth motions.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is none of the words ever fit to the mouth motions. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of scenes in all 3 films where they're zoomed in on them in close-up shots. And you're just like, oh, shit. It's really noticeable.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But, it's like watching a fucking Bruce Lee movie.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't detract from the quality of the film. It's just one of those things where I look at him just like, if only. So...
I think probably the most interesting thing about A Fistful of Dollars is how almost accidental everything was.
Yeah.
Like I sort of mentioned, they were going to put Clint Eastwood in a coon hat and, like, a leather outfit with those little tassels that, like, mountain men wore.
I would watch that movie.
So that he could be a Texan cowboy in Mexico.
Right.
And he got there and he sort of found out that that's what they thought cowboys were in Italy. And he was like, oh, okay, listen, I will get my own wardrobe for this.
Can't really blame him.
No, and that character is so iconic. Not only among Westerns, but in, like, Italian culture in general. The sets where they filmed the town shots for these 3 movies is like a tourist landmark in Italy.
Right. But see, that's the thing. They didn't film these films in Italy. They filmed them in Spain. They're called spaghetti westerns because Sergio Leone is Italian.
Right. That's right.
Because this, if you think about it, that's a common mistake, really. The first film is filmed in Spain, and if you think about it, that landscape doesn't really exist in Italy.
Right.
Italy is not a sand covered landscape.
Right.
It would have been interesting if they had shot it in Italy, but I really like everything about this film, especially the soundtrack, which is the first time Ennio Morricone and Sergio Leone worked together.
Mm-hmm. And
they would work together 4 more times on westerns together.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing is originally Sergio Leone he wanted a trumpet piece from Rio Bravo, which is a John Wayne Western, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
He wanted that to be the sort of main theme, but it ended up not being in public domain, and so Ennio Morricone got to make the soundtrack, and it was so
awesome.
Good.
One of the best pieces of original music ever written.
There's that little, in this movie specifically, there's that little, like, every time Clint Eastwood finishes killing somebody or saying something really cool.
Yeah.
And it'll do, like, a close-up of his face as it,
I mean, it really does heighten the mood and the Western feel of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, I mean, Ennio Morricone was an absolute genius. So was Sergio Leone, obviously, with these films. Or I guess, should I say Bob Robertson, because they were given American names when it was released in the United States. So Sergio Leone became Bob Robertson, and Ennio Morricone became Dan Savio, which is just...
Dan Savio.
Dan Savio. And Gian Maria Volante went by the name of Johnny Wells with one L. Man, how far times have come with cinema, right?
You mean racism in general?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a documentary on Netflix called Never Sleep Again, which is about Nightmare on Elm Street. And one of the actors in the film was Hispanic, but they billed him as Italian in the film.
Why?
Or they gave him a white name, excuse me. They gave him a white name, which is the same thing here.
Right.
Yeah.
But now, Chiwetel Ejiofor can call himself Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yeah, he's not Charles Ewan.
Charlie Ewan.
Charlie Ewan.
Oh, man.
But, I mean, these movies have become classics in the just cinematic landscape. They're not just great Westerns, they're great movies, I think.
Yeah.
At least the first, I mean, in my opinion, and we'll get to this when we get to the end of talking about all three, but I like the story of this one the second best out of all three of them.
Have you ever seen Yojimbo?
I've seen parts of it.
You should check out the whole movie.
I mean, I know that this movie is a ripoff of it.
No, but there's some aspects of Yojimbo that are, not necessarily better or worse, but different that make it,
of course,
also interesting. And if you like this movie, you should check out Yojimbo.
Well, right. I mean, because at their core, Westerns are essentially samurai.
Right, just with guns instead of swords.
Yeah. I mean, the Wild Bunch is it the Wild Bunch?
Magnificent Seven.
Magnificent Seven is a remake of Seven Samurai.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and it's always this kind of revenge story, or I was wronged by you in some way. And that's a similar theme that carries over for all these films. So, and it's that natural progression in Hollywood, You had samurai films, and then you had Westerns, and then, I don't know, then you had Staying Alive. And you had Friday Night Fever or Saturday Night Fever. So, but this movie's great. I really like it. And for me personally, the ending, if it had ended there and we'd never seen another movie, I totally would have been fine with that. But they do set up the character for you wanting to see more of him. But they never give you any more backstory to him in any of the films.
Right. I mean, the only thing you get is he's from Illinois, he tells the guy in...
That's what he claims, but that might not be the truth.
That's true, too.
He says, I'm from Illinois, but, he could have just as easily said, I'm from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But the movie really does show his kind of ingenuity and his quick wit as a character.
Yeah, definitely.
And he takes a beating in every movie. I think except for the second one. I don't think he takes a beating in the second one.
Yeah, he does. They both do.
Yeah, that's right. But he takes a real beating in the first movie and the third one.
Mm-hmm.
Because
the third one is the one where he doesn't get beat.
He has to walk. He has to walk across the fucking desert.
Oh well, yeah, but it's not like he gets punched over and over again.
That's true.
I mean,
he just has to walk through the desert and becomes dehydrated and looks awful.
Right. But in Fistful of Dollars and a Few Dollars More, I mean, those beating torture scenes are 5-10 minutes long.
Yeah,
of just one dude sitting in the corner cackling as Clint Eastwood just gets the shit kicked out of him. And then the way he kills that fat dude by rolling that giant barrel down the fucking loading
It's almost
ramp.
like Looney Tunes-esque in the way he kills him.
Yeah.
The same actor who is in all three movies, I believe?
And in all three of them, he gets murdered terribly.
Does he get murdered in the third one?
In the third one, he's the guy that gets thrown off a train.
Mario Brega?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. He's always a bad guy in all three movies.
And not even, he's like a mook bad guy.
Yeah, well, he's like the big fat guy.
Right.
He's like the fat guy. That's like who he is. That's his character. He's like the big fat laughing asshole.
Uh-huh.
Like that's kind of as much characterization as we ever get in all three movies.
Well, yeah. These movies they don't give you a lot of background on any characters, really. Tuco gets some.
The second one, Mortimer gets some as well.
Yeah, but even then only to tell the sort of revenge story.
Right.
It doesn't tell you, like, where he used to live or, it doesn't show what he did as a soldier or anything like that. You literally just get the revenge story stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So I'm curious though, what do you think that this film's score was on Rotten Tomatoes?
That's rough. I guess not including the fact that I doubt a lot of people have seen it.
We're just talking solely tomato meter, not audience score.
Right. I guess I'm going to go with a 90.
98%.
I'm always low.
Certified fresh. With Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo as his template, Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars helped define a new era for the Western and usher in its most iconic star, Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, that's all absolutely true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really is the natural progression of the Western because we get these Westerns in the 40s and 50s with John Wayne, which are
I'm a good guy, I'm gonna save the town from the Indians.
Right. It's a lot of American jingoism.
Uh-huh.
And then you get Clint Eastwood's character who has no name, and he is ambiguous in his motives.
And morals.
Yeah. And that, to me, is a huge tonal shift with the Westerns.
Yeah. But again, that's, and
then you get another tonal shift in the late 70s, early 80s, with films like The Outlaw Josie Wales, Pale Rider, which kind of tone down the violence and make it more of a character study.
And that's one thing.
And even more Once Upon a Time in the West is like that too.
But that's, again, I sort of mentioned this last podcast, is in Italy or in Spain, Sergio Leone didn't have the sort of code of conduct that Hollywood had.
Right.
And so your American Westerns with John Wayne had to fit a certain code of conduct. So you never got the person shooting and the person getting shot in the same view at the same time in American Westerns. But in Fistful of Dollars, the opening gunfight is over the shoulder of Clint Eastwood as he waits for dudes.
Right.
Because in Spain and in Italy, where the movie was set to sort of release, you could do that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it was so successful, all three of these movies, the fact that they were so successful made America loosen up a little bit. And that's why you got the shift in tone of sort of less sort of morally black and white characters.
Yeah, I could see that.
And better action editing, too.
Right.
Because that whole medium shot of John Wayne shooting, medium shot of guy pretending to die was, it gets really old really quick.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that Sergio Leone came around at the right time with the right ideas. And, he made these three movies and they just ignited a tonal shift in the Westerns that really allowed them to have more staying power than otherwise. Because that tone would not have lasted much longer with Westerns.
No, yeah.
Yeah. So, John, I'm curious. John, skip it, watch it, and best performance.
Obviously watch it. I'm just gonna not.
I think we need to forego that for this Kulturecast.
Well, at least for me, probably for the rest of this month. I don't know if there's a whole lot of movies we're podcasting that I haven't seen before. We'll see. Best performance, I'm gonna go with Gian Maria Volante as Ramon Rojo. Just because he's so arrogant and fucked up in this movie, and especially in the end. I mean, the thing about all three of these movies is the climax of all three of them. They're all fucking astounding.
They're also very reserved at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like now where it's balls to the wall, shit's just exploding. It's two or three guys facing each other down.
You mean using shot composition to build tension?
What's that?
But I don't think I can watch any of the climaxes of any of these three movies without leaning back in on my couch, putting my fingers in my mouth and just grinning. I get super excited whenever these three movies get towards the end because they are so good. And
yeah.
In the climax of this one specifically, you get, we talked about Clint Eastwood puts that iron sheet on and gets shot in it a bunch of times, and every time Ramon shoots him and Clint gets back up, it cuts to a sort of medium shot of Ramon, and each time it zooms in a little closer on his face, and he looks a little more anxious, and then he goes from anxious to worried, and then from worried to just, like, pants-shittingly terrified of Clint Eastwood, and you can see that in his expression and face, and I think that's why I pick him for best performance.
You're picking Gian Maria Volonte?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say watch this movie, and I'm going to have to agree with you. Gian Maria Volonte is absolutely the best part of this movie outside of Clint Eastwood. I mean, his character of Ramon Rojo is just absolutely unhinged and a great foil to Clint Eastwood's reserved man with no name. And, you know, Gian Maria Volonte will go on. He's in the next film as well. But you know, I think that his performance in this movie is better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, he's a little less of a character in the next one.
Well, I think that
he's a little more reserved and a little more sane, you know? I mean, he's clearly unhinged, but he's a little less crazy. He's less, let's set fire to this house, and as people come running out of the house unarmed, let's gun them the fuck down.
Including shooting women.
Right. Because that happens in A Fistful of Dollars, and we just sort of glossed over it.
I mean, you know, again, it's nuts.
Right. In the second one, For a Few Dollars More, he has, you know, an objective, and he's still an outlaw, and he's also a rapist in this one, but he's less outwardly
insane.
Right. Excited, I guess.
He's more kind of thoughtful.
Right. And so I think he gets less chance to act in the second one. Not that he still doesn't pull off a good character, but
right. No, I can agree with that. So I mean, you know, let's stop talking about it in veiled references and let's get right to it. For a Few Dollars More came out in 1965, so it came out the next year.
But it also didn't release until 1967 in the States.
Right. It would feature Clint Eastwood again as the man with no name. In this film, he's known as Manco. Manco. I've seen it both ways. And he is now a bounty hunter, and him and Lee Van Cleef, who plays Colonel Douglas Mortimer, are going after the same escaped killer, El Indio, played by, again, Gian Maria Volonte, and they go across the Southwest chasing after him, and at first they're at odds, and then later in the film they team up to chase after him and get the reward for him and his crew. One of his crew members is the always fantastic Klaus Kinski, which... Again, I did not remember that at all. And being a huge fan of Werner Herzog and Klaus Kinski, it made me laugh to watch Klaus Kinski play a hunchback in this film. John, what did you think of this movie?
You know, again, I really liked it. I think I like this one purely plot-wise. I think I like this one the best. I think cinematically, it's my second favorite. But I think as far as the direct content and the pacing, this is my favorite one. It's a little longer than the first one. The first one is 90-something minutes.
The first one's an hour and a half. This one is about 2 hours, 12 minutes.
Right. And this one has a lot more going on, but it's not too much, I don't think. I really like Lee Van Cleef's character. I like his interactions with Clint Eastwood as they sort of bandy about, trying to assess each other's strengths and weaknesses. And I really like how sort of reserved the twist is until the very end.
Right.
I mean, now that when I watch the movie, I pick up on all the subtle hints, obviously, but I think the first time I watched this movie, I didn't really pick up on Lee Van Cleef, Colonel Mortimer, being related to the chick that...
Well, and they don't hint at it. I mean, it's not made obvious.
Right.
So...
And then at the very end, it's like, oh, shit. And I think I really like that that's not something that I could see coming.
Right. I agree. I don't like this film as much as I like the first one, and that is primarily... Well, I like some things about this movie more than the first one, and I like some things less. I like the storyline less. It feels more disjointed. I like Lee Van Cleef as Colonel Mortimer a lot. I like him in this movie as a good guy, and I know this is probably sacrilege, but I like him more than in the third one.
I get that.
Because Lee Van Cleef always played the villain, and it's always nice to see someone who always plays one side of the coin playing the other.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Sergio Leone specifically picked him because, I mean, he was looking for people that weren't normally good guys.
Right.
And he did the same thing with Frank in Once Upon a Time in the West.
Right, Henry Fonda.
Right, because he liked sort of playing audiences against their sort of preconception.
Yeah. And Lee Van Cleef played the villain most of the time in Westerns from everything I've read.
Mm-hmm. Well, because he has that sort of face.
Long, aquiline face.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And he looks very kind of stark and angry all the time. And, the film just really centers around, them trying to chase down El Indio, which one of the things that made me laugh is when he escapes from prison, he's like laughing. And that laughing face ends up being his wanted picture, which makes no sense. Literally makes no sense.
There are cameras everywhere in the Wild West.
I know, right? In the Wild West, right? But I just feel like the plot of this movie, them trying to just kill him, it's just not as good as the kind of smart plot of the first film with Clint Eastwood outsmarting everyone.
I kind of understand where you're coming from, but even though I do like A Fistful of Dollars, I have to give a few dollars more, brownie points for not being almost directly ripped off from a samurai film.
Right.
I mean, Westerns are absolutely samurai films, like we've already said, but there's a difference between being inspired by Eastern cinema and being a, shot-for-shot, blocking-wise remake of a samurai film.
Yeah. Well, and in this film, I also am not as enamored with Gian Maria Volonte's performance as El Indio.
Right.
It's just okay.
Yeah, again, he feels more like just... he feels closer to just a member of a gang who happens to be the head of the gang, as opposed to in Fistful of Dollars as Ramon Rojo, he was like the boss man that everybody was terrified of. And in this movie, he's more or less just, he's still a badass, but he's also
he has some internal struggle.
Right.
With him killing what turns out to be Mortimer's sister.
Mm-hmm. Because he wanted to be with her, and then he snuck into her house with his gun drawn.
And killed her boyfriend?
Killed her boyfriend, and then raped her, and then as he was raping her, she shot herself.
Yeah.
It's a fucked up.
Yeah. And he also smokes marijuana?
Yeah, he totally does.
Yeah.
And just blanks. And then flashbacks. And that's another thing I like about how this movie is told, is it flashbacks to that scene a couple times, and each time you get another little bit of it. And eventually you find out, because, he's a criminal, and you're like, why is this such a big deal? He killed a guy, and then the second time you do the flashback, you realize, he killed a guy, and then he raped the chick, but you're still like, he's still an outlaw. He's killed a lot of people on screen in the quote-unquote present time. I don't know why this bothers him. And then in the very last one, you get that he didn't kill her. She shot herself rather than being with him.
Right.
And so it just fucked him up in the head. And it's like, oh, that makes sense.
The revenge story in this movie, I just don't... It doesn't have the same wit that the one in the first one does, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think you get that less from Volonte and more from Van Cleef and Eastwood.
Right.
Because their interactions are the wit of the plot. They're sizing each other up by shooting each other's hats off in the street.
Which is an awesome scene.
Right? The kids watching. Clint Eastwood sending in an Asian guy into Lee Van Cleef's room to grab his stuff while Lee Van Cleef is in there. Them talking about their guns. Them talking about their plan to rob the bank. All that sort of different strategies, with Clint Eastwood being very, I like to roll in, kill everybody, and get the money. And Lee Van Cleef being, I like to plan things out. And their sort of interactions with each other is where you get the smart, almost comedy of the film, as opposed to from the bad guys and Clint Eastwood's interaction with them.
Yeah. Well, and, I think that the reason I do enjoy this film in principle is because I like the interaction between Clint Eastwood and Lee Van Cleef. I think if it were just Clint Eastwood chasing after Gian Maria Volonte, this movie would not be that great.
Well, no.
Yeah, it would be, okay, well, we've kind of seen this before. Which begs the question, do you think that the man with no name, what do you think he thinks when he sees El Indio?
What do you mean?
I've seen someone who looks just like you before.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe he just thinks...
I mean, the same thing with Lee Van Cleef in the third one.
Colonel
this guy
Mortimer
I was on this guy's team for a while, and,
Colonel Mortimer must have had a dick twin brother.
Right? I mean, that's a good question.
I always sort of figured that something happened to Mortimer and he sort of changed. Because they clearly know each other in the third movie.
I guess? I never have gotten that.
I mean, I think probably when they made the film, they were thinking, we'll just have them be guys that have crossed paths before to give them some history. But then it's weird when you watch it as a trilogy, you can, with Volonte, you have to assume that it's just a guy that looks really similar because he dies in A Fistful. But he doesn't die in A Few Dollars More, Van Cleef doesn't die in A Few Dollars More. And so you can work under the assumption that Lee Van Cleef shifts into this Dick Angel Eyes character.
Yeah, I just never, I never got that.
That they knew each other?
Yeah.
Well, when they're in when they're at the prison camp in A Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Clint Eastwood and Tuco are both like, hey, that's Angel Eyes.
Right, but what I'm saying is I never got the feeling that Angel Eyes was Mortimer.
Oh, no, I didn't either. I'm just saying if we're making stretch connections. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can get behind that.
Otherwise, there's just a shitload of people that all look the same in Mexico.
In the West. Yeah, they're all just like random people running around in the West who all look alike. Good for them, right?
All squinty-eyed dudes with mustaches and black clothes.
Yeah, I guess that could be just as good as an explanation, really. Yeah, there's just a bunch of guys running around in the West with trench, like Western blazers on, and dusters and cowboy hats, whatever. They all look the same. They all have mustaches and goatees. So I guess that's as good an explanation as any, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just always kind of cracked me up because considering how it is the same person.
Right.
Well, lookalikes in the West aside, because there are apparently a lot of men in the West who look alike. What did you think of the supporting cast in this film? I already mentioned Klaus Kinski as the Hunchback. What did you think of kind of El Indio's crew?
What little time each of them gets, they use well. I like Luigi Pistilli. I don't know.
Luigi Pistilli?
Pistilli? I doubt that's how you pronounce it with an Italian accent, but...
Pistilli?
Whatever. I like his character. Is he the one?
He's the one that doesn't die at the end.
Right. I like his character. He sort of... Because... El Indio starts doing that, hey, the less of my guys are alive, the less ways I have to split all the money from this bank job we just pulled.
Right.
And, Luigi is the only one that sort of puts the pieces together and comes back to turn the tables on El Indio. Then you get Cuchillo, and he sort of has an interesting persona, but, again, you don't really get to see a lot of him. It mostly follows Mario Brega and Klaus Kinski.
Right, and Klaus Kinski is great.
Right, his interactions with Lee Van Cleef is pretty spot on.
Yeah. I like the crew in this movie. The one in the first film, I think, is a little bit better. They're a little bit more fleshed out.
The two brothers are.
Yeah, but I think that just goes along with the kind of feeling I have towards, Gian Maria Volonte in this film.
Right.
And his character. So, but what did you think Rotten Tomatoes has to say for this film?
If the last one has a 98, I'm going to say that they give this one a 92.
94%.
A little low.
With Clint Eastwood in the lead, Ennio Morricone on the score, and Sergio Leone's stylish direction, For a Few Dollars More earns its recognition as a genre classic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that it's a good addition to the the 3. It's a good addition to the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
It, makes Clint Eastwood's character look like a badass again. Gives you some interesting villains to, root against, and also introduces another actor kind of into this universe, Lee Van Cleef as Mortimer.
Also, you know what I like? In the first one, they name him Joe, and in the third one, they name him Blondie. And those are both pretty generic.
Right.
But in this one, they name him Manco, and that's actually Spanish for lame in one hand.
Right.
Which is it's in reference to it does everything in this movie with his left hand, because his right hand is always on his pistol. And so you can see him drinking whiskey, or even he has a whole fist fight with a guy that he only fights left-handed. And I just think, watching this movie and noticing that, it's really interesting to watch his character do things with only his left hand.
Yeah. I agree. With that being kind of the backstory for that name.
Mm-hmm. And it adds a little bit of sort of flair to the character of the man with no name. Not that he needs it, but it adds a little bit of something to it.
Yeah. I don't think, he's already a badass because he just walks around and has this kind of swagger to him when he walks around. I don't think he needs to be, epitomized as a badass.
Right. In this movie, we got that opening scene where he goes after that guy, Red, I think is the bounty's name, and he just walks up to the guy playing poker, deals a hand between just them, wins the hand, and the guy's like, I didn't get what the bet was.
He's like, your life.
Your life. Well, punch.
Yeah, there's a lot of memorable stuff from the movie. And Sergio Leone's direction is absolutely fantastic. He is one of the biggest influences on the Western genre outside of actors. And everyone that has made Westerns since him has tried to pay tribute to him in some form or fashion. And that just speaks volumes to him as a kind of cornerstone of the genre. Mm-hmm. John, best performance, since we already know what the answer to the other question is going to be.
This time I have to give it to Lee Van Cleef. And I realized as we're doing this, I'm not going to give any of them to Clint Eastwood, which is a little surprising to me, personally. I never really thought of who the best one was in any of these movies, well, except for the third one.
Well, that's pretty clear cut.
Right. I think Lee Van Cleef takes it with for a few dollars or more.
I can get behind that. For me, in a few dollars more, obviously watch it. Clint Eastwood is gonna take it best performance for this film for me. I didn't give it to him in the first film because I was kind of so enamored with Gian Maria Volonté. I like Lee Van Cleef in this movie, but I do like Clint Eastwood a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we need to give it to him at least once, considering how I think we're going to give it to the same person in the third.
Probably, yeah.
So, speaking of the third film, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, it is the epic to end all epic westerns. Directed by Sergio Leone, was directed in 1966. Didn't come out in the U.S. until, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't spot dates on that either. Yeah. I know A Few Dollars More and A Fistful of Dollars came out at the same time and got billed together, but I didn't spot any specific American release dates for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Right. Features Ennio Morricone again composing score. Clint Eastwood reprising his role as the man with no name. In this film, he's called Blondie. Also features Lee Van Cleef as Angel Eyes, and it introduces Eli Wallach as Tuco, short for Tuco Benedicto Pacifico Juan Maria Ramirez, who is the ugly. Lee Van Cleef is the bad, and Clint Eastwood is the good.
Even though Clint Eastwood kills more people than the ugly and the bad combined.
Right. And the three of them are racing to find buried gold in a Confederate graveyard. Or just a graveyard, I guess. A cemetery in the middle of nowhere.
Right. And Tuco knows the graveyard, and Eastwood knows the name on the grave.
And Lee Van Cleef is the one who kind of sets it all into motion. Mm-hmm. And so the three of them are racing to get $200,000 in gold. And that's kind of the main gist of the film. What did you think of it, John?
I love this movie. This is one of the first Westerns I watched. Like I said earlier, my dad sort of called me in. He came home from work one day and I was outside, and he sort of called me in to come inside for dinner, and we ate dinner, and he was like, John, there's a Western that I rented that I want to show you. It's one of my favorite from when I was a kid. And I was like, okay, sure. And then we sat down and watched it, and I was just like, that was awesome! It's... The scope of it is just...
nuts.
It's insane. I mean, they crisscross across the United States during the Civil War. So you go from watching Tuco and Blondie pull their little con where Blondie turns Tuco in for the bounty, then shoots the noose as they hang Tuco. You go from watching them pull that sort of low-end petty shit, comparatively, to hating each other, to wandering across the desert, to bumping into a, dying Confederate soldier who tells them the information for $20 million in gold, to them, in POW camps, riding on trains, in a Civil War battlefield, blowing up a bridge. I mean, the scope of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is insane. And there are spots where it drags. I'm not going to say there aren't, because when you make a 2-hour and 58-minute Western film, there are going to be spots where it drags. But I think even the parts where it drag, I don't know, I like them. I like the feel, I like the tone, I like the character interaction, and it helps that Tuco is probably my favorite fictional character ever.
He's pretty great.
I mean,
it also helps that Eli Wallach is white. And he looks surprisingly Hispanic in this film. I mean, if you've ever seen what Eli Wallach looks like in real life, he is not Hispanic. I believe he's Jewish, which is even more surprising. Yes, he is Jewish. He was a Jew who grew up in Brooklyn in a Italian neighborhood.
You give a guy enough suntan and facial hair and shitty clothes and
brown makeup.
Yeah, I mean, it's not tough to make a white guy look Hispanic, honestly.
It's hard to make a Hispanic guy look white.
Right. It's hard to go lighter. It's a lot easier to makeup-wise to go darker.
Yeah. No, I mean, he is the absolute best part of this film.
His character is undoubtedly my favorite. Every scene that Tuco is in, I always chuckle at. I mean, you got the very opening scene of the movie where those 3 dudes just randomly show up in this literally one-horse town, and they go into the bar, and there's a bunch of gunshots, and Tuco literally jumps through the window holding a gun and a turkey leg that he's got like a bunch of turkey hanging out of his mouth.
And he jumps out the window.
Uh-huh. And it freeze frames on him and it goes The Ugly, And then later on, he's making his own gun in the store, which is just, I love that scene. His interaction with that gun store owner, and the fact that all of that was just Eli Wallach not knowing anything about guns and Sergio Leone just being like, just do whatever you want. We got a shitload of guns in here. Just do something.
Right.
And then all the way down to his stuff at the very end, when he gets to the graveyard and runs around. That's probably the most iconic scene from this whole movie just because of the accompanying song, is where he's running in circles, just like sprinting through a graveyard without any sort of organization or plan, trying to find the name.
Yeah. While playing the iconic Ecstasy of Gold.
Right. That fucking...
La Estasi de Oro by the, always talented Ennio Morricone.
The song that even Metallica plays at the...
Yeah, Metallica, that's their opening song is the Ecstasy of Gold. And if you've never heard their version, it's fantastic. Mm-hmm. So much of this movie, just like Once Upon a Time in the West, has become kind of Western, has become part of the Western lexicon.
Well, I mean, that's
the Mexican standoff, the kind of, there's this, the dichotomy of the characters that are all starkly different from one another, kind of the race for gold, that is kind of that has become kind of the thing now with Westerns, mm-hmm. that everything else is aped off of.
And I don't know if there's any Sergio Leone movie that I can think of. I guess Duck You Suckers wasn't as popular, and Once Upon a Time in America is less sort of defining and more almost just Sergio Leone's take on what gangster movies already were.
Right.
But, everything from A Fistful of Dollars to Once Upon a Time in the West, all those movies are now sort of Western staples and archetype builders.
Right.
And we keep saying every time we talk about a movie, we're like, oh, this Sergio Leone movie is iconic and referenced in lots of stuff. And it's like, well, all of them are.
Well, and what kind of cracked me up about watching this movie the second time around is in the first two films, Clint Eastwood is clearly the main character. Mm-hmm. In this one, he plays a supporting role to Tuco.
Mm-hmm. I mean...
Like, the film is about Tuco. It is not about the man with no name.
Right, because you even get character background for Tuco. He, has a whole scene
about his
where
brother.
And talks about his...
Who is played by Luigi Pisti from For a Few Dollars More.
Mm-hmm.
So... It's, there's a lot in this movie that you would think it's, from how iconic it is with Clint Eastwood and whatnot. I mean, this movie's not about Clint Eastwood's character.
No. And Clint Eastwood got top billed, but Tuco has far more screen time than Blondie.
Yeah. And they both have more screen time than Lee Van Cleef, who's not in the film for a good hour.
Right. You get like a shot of him at the beginning to establish that he exists. And then he's not in the movie again until Tuco and Blondie get arrested pretending to be Confederate soldiers.
Right. With Clint Eastwood chomping on that goddamn cigar.
That scene where they get caught? That's another scene. There's so many scenes that I watch that happen while I watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and I'm like, oh, right, that scene is in this. Man, this scene's great. Because they're driving down the road dressed as Confederate soldiers trying to figure out where they're going to go, and they see a column of horses riding towards them.
Right.
And Blondie says, well, are they rebel or Confederate? And Tuco looks out over the desert, and he's like, they're Confederate. And so he starts yelling, hooray for Dixie! The God hates the Yanks! And all that shit. And then they ride up, and the horses stop, and the guy in charge in the front of the formation just starts hitting his arm with his glove, and the dust and dirt from the trail just flops off his uniform, and you see it's blue.
And he's like, you idiot.
Right? God's not on our side, because he also hates idiots. This whole movie is stuff like that.
Well, and, another kind of thing about Eli Wallach that's crazy about this movie, and this is something you and I were talking about back and forth, is that Eli Wallach almost died on 3 separate occasions while filming this movie, which is absolutely insane.
Just absurd.
No regard for the actor's well-being.
No. And honestly, it's astounding to me that they kept going. I mean, you think of actors nowadays, my assumption is that...
one thing goes wrong and they freak the fuck out?
Right. The first time they almost die, they're like, oh, I'm out. We're not doing this anymore. And it's 3 times. I mean, one time, the noose breaks, and the horse gets scared by the gunshots, and it takes off uncontrollably, and it...
with him on the back.
Right, and the horse rode for like a mile or something like that, at full gallop, with his hands tied behind his back, and so he had to just tighten his knees around the horse to not fall off and die. And then the second time, we talked about, Mario Brega, how he dies by getting thrown off a train, and Tuco has to cut the chains, and so he puts Mario Brega's dummy on the tracks, and then puts the chain over the tracks, and the train rolls by and cuts the chain, but he's got his head down in the dirt and the elbow, and you can see the step of the caboose, or the train car, whip right past where his head would be if he, stuck his head up.
Right, and it would have killed him.
Right, absolutely, because that train was...
decapitated him. Which is just nuts.
Right. And then the third time, he fucking drank a bottle of acid.
Because it was sitting next to a soda bottle.
Not even that. They used the acid to make the gold look shiny, and they put the leftover acid in an empty lemon soda bottle. And so it was yellow, and it was in a lemon soda bottle, and he was thirsty in the desert, so he just picked it up and started drinking it.
Because that's smart.
Oh, my God. And so, apparently what he did is he spit it up and all, obviously, and, did all the vomiting and stuff you have to do to not die. But he was supposed to shoot a scene, and he was getting sores forming in his mouth from the acid, and so he just drank a bunch of milk and then went in and shot the scene.
Because he's a fucking trooper.
Exactly.
Man.
And I would be surprised if you can find a modern day film that has an actor in it that does that. I mean, there are actors nowadays that they'll like, we talked about Pitch Black with Vin Diesel. And he tore a tendon or something or pulled a muscle and all that sort of stuff, and he kept acting through it. And that's admirable, but I don't know if I've heard of anyone coming within inches of getting their head cut off by a movie and going, it's cool. Did we get the take? I can do it again.
Well, the only thing that I can think of that comes close is DiCaprio in Django, where he cuts his hand and he just starts bleeding.
Oh, and just keeps acting?
And then he rubs his bloody hand on Kerry Washington's face. And her reaction is legitimate disgust because Leonardo DiCaprio just rubbed his bloody hand all over her face. Which is nuts, but it's not as nuts as almost dying.
Right.
Twice, 3 times. And, credit Eli Wallach with Henry Ford being in Once Upon a Time in the West, because when Henry Ford asked Eli Wallach if I should do this kind of crazy Western movie with this crazy Western director.
You mean Henry Fonda?
Yeah, Henry Fonda, whatever, Henry Ford. Should I do this crazy Western movie with this director? And Eli Wallach was like, it'll be the best time you've ever had.
And I could totally see that.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been a blast to shoot this movie. A blast, it must have also been absolutely nuts.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was probably at once both the best thing ever and the most shitty, awful thing ever.
Yeah.
I mean, those set pieces are not built in a studio.
Well, and the fact that Sergio Leone also, didn't speak English, which is astounding.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know if we mentioned it on A Fistful of Dollars. Sergio Leone didn't speak English, and Clint Eastwood didn't speak Italian, and so a stuntman that was on set that happened to speak both ended up being their sort of de facto translator. And in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Eli Wallach didn't speak Italian, and Sergio Leone didn't speak English. But they both spoke French, so they communicated in French.
Right. And Leone was a perfectionist, and that's why Eastwood didn't film with him after The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He had had enough of his shit. So that's why he turned down harmonica. And then Sergio Leone would take some pot shots at Clint Eastwood. During his filming of Once Upon a Time in America, he said something to the effect of, Robert De Niro is an actual actor. Clint Eastwood is just kind of a guy who is there. God, okay. Then Clint Eastwood would get the final laugh by taking his poncho from the movie and giving it to his friend who owns a restaurant. And I'm assuming it's on display in Carmel, California, where Clint Eastwood was mayor of the town.
If you had that shit, why wouldn't you put it on display?
I would just wear it around.
Right? I'd be like, oh, thanks, Clint. I would just put it on and wear it all the goddamn time.
Yeah. But, this movie, as opposed to the last two, this movie really does feel like an epic. It's more akin to Lord of the Rings or Star Wars than the previous two films.
Oh, yeah.
And they go everywhere. At one point, there's a huge bridge scene where they have to blow up a bridge in between Confederate and Union soldiers.
And, they have shots of the Union and Confederate lines charging each other on the bridge.
Yeah.
With Gatling guns firing into the fray and cannon shells exploding.
Yeah. And then they blow up the bridge, which was nuts.
And also, when we were talking about near deaths, we should have mentioned that scene. Because you can watch the shot when the bridge explodes. Tuco and Blondie are sort of tucked into a ditch, and Tuco's ass is facing the bridge and Blondie's head is facing the bridge. And you can see a huge chunk of rock come flying in from the bridge and land literally right next to their little hole and smash into a bunch of sandbags and almost fucking just murder Clint Eastwood.
Well, and there's a scene before that where there's like a Confederate soldier walking around, and there's like an explosion, and he walks right through the explosion.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, fuck. Like, this is just, it must have been mayhem.
Oh,
but
yeah.
in the best way.
Safety standards in Spain, apparently.
Yeah, right? Italian filmmakers didn't give a shit about safety.
Mm-mm.
But, all of that resulted in one of the best movies ever made.
Mm-hmm.
This really is just an amazing film. An amazing kind of feat of filmmaking.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not sure it's my favorite movie. I'm not going to be Quentin Tarantino and say it's my favorite movie ever and it's influenced everything I've ever done. But it definitely is one of those movies where I see a lot of influences in everything else I watch from it.
You know, and you sort of mentioned influence as a student filmmaker. I literally just finished making a short film, like a 5-minute short for a class, and having watched this at the same time that I was shooting that, I noticed that Sergio Leone's westerns have totally influenced my film style. Because I really like those close-ups, those extreme close-ups of the body parts to build sort of tension and meaning in the scene, and I do that even in the short films that I make now.
Right.
And it's not, I'm not gonna fawn over it or anything like that.
It's Leone-esque.
Right, but it is, it's not even an intentional thing that I do. It's just when I'm writing the shooting scripts, I just put it in there because I picture it in my head that way.
Right.
And then as I watched the Man with No Name trilogy, I'm like, oh man, that's where I got that from.
Right, subconsciously, right?
Right.
Yeah, this movie has influenced filmmakers, current filmmakers, prior filmmakers. I think it cemented Eastwood's career. Not that the other films didn't, but I think that this film really put him up on that pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would say that it and Once Upon a Time in the West are the two best Westerns.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And it's also the highest rated movie to never receive Oscar nominations, which is awful.
Well,
it sucks because this movie is a masterpiece.
Right, but it was, since it was made in Europe, I'm assuming when it came time for Oscar nominations, it was competing in, the foreign film category as opposed to Best Picture,
Right.
And so it probably didn't get a lot of, attention. Because it's also not, it's not overly artsy either, which is also a kind of thing that happens in Oscar nominations.
Yeah, is that they're up their own ass.
Uh-huh. Whereas this movie is just like, Sergio Leone liked making movies that looked that way. That's what he pictured in his head when he started shooting, and that's what it came out to be. And it's not, look at this really cool shot angle we got.
Yeah.
Look, the color here is green when it should be red.
This symbolizes happiness.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a story about 3 dudes trying to get $20 million in gold.
Yeah. Well, and I think it speaks volumes to Sergio Leone as a auteur on top of just being a filmmaker. He was more auteur than just run-of-the-mill filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
That he turned down a sequel to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah.
A sequel called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly 2, which would have featured Tuco going after Blondie's grandson.
Just a really old Tuco.
That would have been awful, right?
I think if it had been overseen by Sergio Leone, I don't think it would have been awful. I don't think it would have been nearly as good.
But he was the one who vetoed it.
Right, exactly.
Because he didn't want those characters to be ruined, and he didn't want to make another Western.
Right, but I think it would have been awful thus. But I think that if it had been a script that he had read and thought, yeah, this could do it justice. If it had been if he had seen a script for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly 2 and thought, yes, I can make that, then I don't think it would have been bad. I just think they probably gave him a script that he was like, I'm not really feeling that. I like them where they are.
Right. I could see that. I'm glad it doesn't exist.
Well, me too. I'm glad they didn't just go, well, fuck you, Leone. We're doing it anyway.
Right. And that's, and that just, again, testament to Sergio Leone as an auteur. It's just absolute, just master of the craft, and that comes through in everything he ever did. And The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is a good companion piece, or they're good companion pieces to one another with Once Upon a Time in the West, because it's two sides of the same coin with Sergio Leone.
Mm-hmm.
And The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly starts moving towards Once Upon a Time in the West. You can see that with Tuco's character. It's more of a character study, but they never go full there in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, as they do in Once Upon a Time in the West,
right? Which
is just all character study.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think the tomato meter reads for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly?
Oh, man, I'm gonna guess 96, but I feel like I'm going to be over it this time.
97%.
Oh, yeah. Still came in under.
Arguably the greatest of the spaghetti westerns, this epic features a compelling story, memorable performances, breathtaking landscapes, and a haunting score. Only thing I would disagree with is the haunting score. The score is just more boisterous in this movie than in Once Upon a Time in the West. Each character has their own, instrument used for them. Tuco is, human voices. Angel Eyes is guitars. And then,
or like a
it's like an ocarina, but there's also a lot of guitars, and then a flute for Clint Eastwood. Yeah, I would say that the theme, the kind of music in Once Upon a Time in the West is more haunting than in this one. This one's just very boisterous.
Yeah, but I don't know if I don't know if I can rock out to the music from Once Upon a Time in the West. I don't know if I can
rock out to the music in this movie either.
Well, not rock out, but when I sit down on the couch and I put on the theme from Once Upon a Time in the West, it's not something that I can
But it is very haunting.
Right. But I think I like the music from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly better because I can go back and listen to the soundtrack by itself without watching the movie and enjoy it. I can put on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the soundtrack, while I'm driving down the street and be like, yeah.
You're such a nerd, John.
I am a huge nerd.
I mean, and the ecstasy of gold comes from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Mm-hmm. So I guess, again, just...
So you can rock out to it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's haunting.
No, that's true.
Yeah, that's my issue, is I don't think it's very haunting. I think it's more of just a very strong... It has strong elements and themes throughout the film. And the score in Once Upon a Time in the West is much more haunting. Mm-hmm. So, best performance.
You know what I'm giving it to? Eli Wallach.
I would just give it to the same person,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, Tuco is... Not only is he the main character of this movie by any definition, he is also the most entertaining to watch. And also, Eli Wallach just took the most risks and beatings for this movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Almost dying 3 times. That'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. Eli Wallach is definitely the best of this film and the best of the 3.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Yeah. Curious, ranking-wise of the 3, how would you rate them?
I think I gotta rate them in reverse order that they were made. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, a few dollars more, and A Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah, see, I have to go with Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, A Fistful of Dollars, few dollars more.
Yeah. I mean,
just based off of Gian Volonte's performance in the second film just doesn't have that same kind of kinetic fervor that he does in the first film.
You're right, it doesn't, but I don't know. I still
that's what I liked about it. If that's not what you liked about it, then you're not going to like it.
No, I mean, it is what I liked.
Then it's not going to matter, is what I mean.
Right. It is what I liked about the first film, but I think that the second film's story structure overall, you can see Sergio Leone getting closer and closer to,
Once Upon a Time in the West,
right.
More or less.
And getting longer and longer, and I think that the storyline in For a Few Dollars More is sort of middle ground between Fistful of Dollars, straightforward, this is good guy, this is bad guy, this is the plan, done. And Once Upon a Time in the West, I don't know what's happening. Oh, that's what it is. Oh shit,
Right.
And I think I like Clint Eastwood and Lee Van Cleef working together more than I like Clint Eastwood playing those two groups against each other.
I can see that. Yeah, that's understandable. But yeah, I mean, that for me is, my rating. And obviously, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly doesn't really have any kind of comparison in that trilogy. Again, the closest I think it comes is Once Upon a Time in the West in regards to comparison.
Mm-hmm. Or if Lord of the Rings had been good.
Oh, boom, boom, shots fired. Damn, dude. Wow. I get some hate mail for that one.
Yeah.
Well, John, before we wrap this up, is there anything you want to plug?
Well, we got the Chronicles from the Crypt podcast that comes out once a week. We got our other, the second Kulturecast of the week. Is the wrestling thing this weekend?
No, it's next weekend.
Next weekend. My Twitter is JohnLeon1, and that's it. Don't follow me on Facebook.
Don't add you as a friend on Facebook.
That shit clutters up my news feed.
It's already cluttered up enough as it is.
Yeah, with the 50 friends that managed to get through my last whittling.
Facebook fire sale. Everyone must go. That's what I call it. And I do it once a year, and it's an extremely satisfying thing. You can follow me on Twitter at HeelStash. Like Culture Shocked on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Like John said, we have two Culture Casts a week, a Chronicles from the Crypt once a week, and a Wrestling Running the Ropes podcast after every WWE pay-per-view. We're also adding another podcast to the site, but I can't talk very much about it now because it's still in production. So,
and I'm not on it, so
yeah, and I'm not on it either. So I don't know much about it other than it's happening, and it's like that. It's like a ride at Disney World that's kind of covered in that tarp thing. It's there, you see it, you know what it is, but you're not sure what it is. This Sunday, we're going to be talking about Gunless and Support Your Local Sheriff, two Western comedies, and I have not seen either, so I'm looking forward to it. Western comedies normally are Blazing Saddles and The Three Amigos. We're not watching either of those this month because everybody's seen them. Mm-hmm. What is there really to say about them?
They're
awesome.
Good.
They're funny. Right. So make sure to check those out.